If the shaft was at right angles to the ground, there would be no natural arc.
And a nice little drill I've always done is I get my players to actually take their hand off and just apply pressure there. And what you'll see is the wrist creases don't. Jack Nicklaus right here. We've seen Bryony Baird right here. We've seen multiple different, people square, people slightly open like Tiger.
You can look down the line, right? So if it's a little bit here, I'm not gonna freak out about
This is the most important thing.
Yeah.
40 to 42% of our total score right here on the putting green alone. And it's been, I consider when I look back on my junior career and look back on my career, that was all fun and games over there. But the reason why I was the player I was because of what you did for me here.
The interesting thing is that sometimes people ask me about amateurs, and not everybody, but for most people, the lowest hanging fruit in their score is for sure putting. Some people come and they say, I putt pretty well, I want to work on my golf swing, I drive, I slice it, blah, blah, blah. And then, well, let's qualify your putting. And then they'll start thinking about it, and they're like, well, I 2-putt, pretty much most of the time. And I'm like, well, do you 3-putt? Yeah, I 3-putt. Well, how many times do you average a 3-putt? I'm probably 3 or 4. I'm like, yeah, okay, so you're averaging 38 putts around. Your putting's horrible.
Yes.
Right? And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that, right? They just don't realize it. It doesn't hurt as much maybe as a ball going out of bounds, but it's still a shot. A lot of people could drop, to me, on average, 3 to 4 shots around, maybe 5 if they were better putters. It's the lowest hanging fruit because it's easy.
Absolutely.
It's hard to change a golf swing, right? An ingrained golf swing, and it's hard to learn a golf ball, but putting's easy to learn. Anybody can learn to putt, the way I look at it.
So with that being said, what would you say is the number one, mishap when it comes to putting for amateur golfers?
The biggest problem to me is most people accommodate themselves to the putter instead of learning the right setup, because as we talked about over there, the setup is everything. And if it's setup. If you set up poorly to a putt, your mechanics are going to be bad. And the problem with a bad setup in a putting stroke that's not mechanically sound because of the setup, you have very little time to recover. In a golf swing, you have some time to recover, right? If this putter is not pointed where it should point in the backstroke, well, I have very little time to recover. Like a lot of times the yips are just because the brain knows I'm out of position. I got to try to get in position. A lot of times I tell people, I want you to think during the setup so that you don't have to think during the stroke. I want your mind clear so you're able to get into that target and keep your mind, that's where it belongs. It doesn't belong on looking at this putter and outside, inside, release the toe. Sometimes you hear him say, oh, look how he's releasing the toe of the putter. I'm like, he's not thinking about that.
He's not thinking about that.
Right? It's just a result of doing the right thing in the back. So like you said, I use this phrase rotate, tuck, and tilt, and that's basically, for most people, they have to have some rotation just to get neutral. Now I need very little because my arms basically are there, but if David Duval, he'd have a lot, right? But you want to get to where your right palm in the back of your left hand is facing the target. That's the sideways pull push, right? So I'm going to rotate enough to get my palms neutral. I'm going to tuck. Now when I say tuck, I don't want someone jammed up, and I don't want them tight. I want everything relaxed in the upper body. I like when you said Tiger likes to putt from his upper back. I'm a big believer in that. I actually feel that, and we'll talk about feels in a minute. But basically, I want to feel like as I move, my elbows are kind of sliding, and they're free, but they're not out here where it's like I have no control and they're not jammed up. Right?
So once again, guys, this is really important. We talked about this earlier, the connecting points, and Todd had a great understanding of helping you the inner bicep like a plug, right? And here's where the outlet is. It's not on the sides where the seams of the shirt are. And what we both have seen over the years, when people get here, the elbows are trapped and they get handsy.
Yep.
Okay, you're not going to be narrow like this and in front of your body like this. That doesn't make sense. But here's what we're going to do: the midpoints again to the seam on the shirt and the center of your body. That's where the plug and the outlet are right there.
So I almost feel like the armpit's connected in the golf swing, and then I'll say that the bicep is connected in the putting stroke.
In the putting, agreed.
Right? So the elbows are they're free to pass underneath me as I tilt forward. If I have a ball in my right hand, I can go to the target without moving my center. I always say when someone's stuck, and so you can get stuck a couple ways. We'll talk about this later in the setup, but your hips are behind you. Anytime your hips are behind you, your shoulder joint is behind you.
Yep. Now
you're stuck. The other way you get stuck is to have your elbows up, right? Whenever someone's stuck, there's 3 options. Either use your hands, flip it, right? Hang back, or open up. Something's got to give you the freedom to keep it moving forward. But let's talk about the 3 major points. Well, I would say 4 major points in the setup.
Okay.
All right, the first one, I talk about face twist. All right, face twist is simply, where do I apply pressure on the grip? So if a person applies pressure on the top of the grip, the club face will close. If a person applies pressure on the bottom of the grip, the club face will open. So I don't want to apply pressure on the top or the bottom during the motion of the putter. I always want pressure to be applied to the sides of the grip. That's why, frankly, a lot of players that are doing well with the claw, reason why is because they had too much pressure on top of the grip, and so they get a lot of closure. And of course, if you get closure, then your body fights it and it opens up. Face twist. So the key with the grip is finding a grip, whether or not I have a reverse overlap, right, where I'm overlapping my pinky and my forefinger. But if you look at my palms are neutral to each other. They're lined up with each other. I don't have one palm higher than the other, right? Whether someone's left hand low or reverse overlap or all fingers or claw, whatever grip allows you to keep pressure on the side of the grip during the motion of the stroke and be relaxed, then you're getting get rid of face.
What Todd said, I love it. It's almost like you're praying, right? You're trying to find a grip that can keep the sideways pressure. And you can see I'm right hand low, conventional, but I definitely keep the sideways pressure. Now, if I were to take my right hand off, I really have the putter a direct extension of my forearms as a result of not having it grip below my heel pad.
Yeah.
When I first started working with Todd, this was my grip. And I had it like this. And I had a lot of movement to the stroke, and it was really hingy.
A lot of
twist to it,
Yeah.
right? So I really worked it more up in the lifeline. Now, I never could get it all the way in the lifeline for me. That wasn't but he didn't need it there. He was always okay with me being at the bottom of my forearm there on my heel pad, and that's where I was happy with it. I have this arm in a position that you've always helped me with, and my grip in a spot to where I feel like my palm is matching that putter face. Wherever that face is going, so is my hand, right? They're one and the same. Now, what I did was, this was a stabilizing force to my stroke. I had a lot of pressure putts at a young age that went in as a result of having a connecting point here that really I felt controlled the path of my stroke. And what it also did is it controlled the face. And I always know that you said, regardless, like Billy Mayfair, Isaiah Waioki, right?
Right.
They just
Connected but in front.
Connected but in front.
You weren't
Not
connected back here. You were connected.
front.
So
It was
I
moved-
felt connection here, but I could get to the
Yes.
target. And like you said, the face of your putter is the same as your right palm. And bottom line is, my right palm is where I want the ball to start. I'm going to roll some good putts.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that's important to understand, you guys, about the way the putter works in general too is, here's the thing. If I open this putter up and I stroke towards you, the ball's going to go in the direction the face is pointed. If I have a wedge with loft and I swing in the direction of you, it's not going to go where the leading edge is pointed unless it hits the leading edge. It's going to ride up the face and go in the direction that you're swinging. So it's really important to understand that. That kind of can explain why long irons that are a little flatter faces can get offline a little bit quicker, right? But the big thing about putting is that's a huge point Todd helped me with at a young age, that more so than even the path of the stroke, you helped me control the face. And when I had control of the face, I had control of my starting line.
That's
And,
right.
and you look at Billy Mayfair as an example. The stroke would go like this.
Yeah.
But yet you'd watch the ball roll end over end towards his target, and you're like, whoa, how does that happen? Incredible control of the face.
Yeah.
So really, it's important to find a grip that gives you control of the face. Now, this has always been my grip right here. I have my index finger overlapping my hand. I have my right hand really on the putter. I don't putt well when I get it off the putter. I like my right hand really being on the putter and having the middle of my palm being there, and I just fit my left underneath it. But for me, I've always felt like my right hand was very much in control of the face. And for me personally, I tighten my core and I let my arms be soft, and I really feel like the middle of my body hits my putts.
Stable.
That's just me personally. I've heard Faxon say some of the same things. Todd and Tiger, both a little bit more from the upper back. Now, I also feel that if I think about
That's
it.
about the only time my name is going to be mentioned.
Yeah, but let me tell you, I will tell you this. I don't believe there's a player in the world. When I used to watch him teach putting, I always felt, man, if every player just ran through here for just 15 minutes, just to have Todd run through the setup with them, I just don't believe one person on the planet would regress as a result. They all would improve. And that's why I'm excited to have you guys all here listening to this. You've heard these things from me, but it's nice to hear Todd talk about that. A couple things that are great already. Pressure on top, gonna close it. Pressure underneath, gonna open it. And that could answer a lot of people's questions already as to how they're gripping it. Oh man, that's why mine does that. Or man, that's why I do that.
Yep.
But yeah, really working on getting that like you're praying here, whether it's cross-handed, whether it's conventional, or whether it's the claw, you're looking to have that sideways pressure on the grip.
Let's get the face stable, because
Absolutely.
bottom line is, whatever the hands do, the body's probably going to do the opposite. So if someone's closing the face because of their grip, their body is going to fight that, and all of a sudden they have opposing forces. They don't have flow, right? Flow is when I don't have to stop anything from moving. I can just let it go, and I'm not fighting anything. But if I have closure, well, I'm probably going to have my body fighting it, just like in the golf swing. I'm
Yep.
always trying to get everything working together. So let's go back. There's 4 major points in the setup that I think are critical. We already talked about face twist. So one of the things I look at is that when someone sets up, this is where rotate, tuck, and tilt works. So I rotate my elbows in. This is the point. My elbows have to be bent. So when I bend my elbows and I kind of let them sit on the front of my rib cage in the corner, now the putter shaft and my arms create a straight line. So that basically I've got the shaft of my putter and my arms in a straight line. What I don't want,
here.
I don't want to be up here like I would in the golf swing. Why? Because in the golf swing, I'm setting a lever, right? There is no leverage in putting, right? So we want the putter more, the grip more in the palms, and the shaft in alignment with the forearms. The bend is at the elbows. Now here's what's critical. As I bend forward from my hip joint, as we've talked about all through the golf swing, as I bend forward from the hip joint, right, and I tilt forward, I got to maintain that position. I'll see a lot of players, they might start here, but then as they let the putter down on the ground, they drop it. And so they're not bending at the hips and they come off, right? So stay connected, right, and tilt forward until the putter hits the ground. Now, that is contingent on the right length putter. If I have the wrong length putter, that won't work, right? If I'm here and I have a putter that's too long for me and I go to bend forward, it hits the ground too soon, well, now I can't bend enough.
And the eyes are right here, you know.
My eyes are way inside, so like I said, 3 things. Distance from the ball, connection, or forward tilt. If you have the putter that's the right length, the putter is actually part of the setup. It allows you to set up properly every time. If you have a putter that's the wrong length, you will not set up correctly.
Absolutely.
You can't do it.
Simple as that.
It's just mathematics. All right, now, next point. When I have a putter that's fit to me properly and I tilt forward, the other thing that happens when I tilt forward is now my eyes come to rest on the inside edge of the ball. Now, I know there's different schools of thought out there. I'm a common sense guy, so I'm like, look, if I'm shooting a rifle, I'm gonna have my eyes on the rifle sights. It doesn't make sense to me to have my eyes to the side too much, or I've never seen it. I mean, I can't imagine looking past the ball, right? So I always say inside edge of the ball because basically I feel like your eyes are in a position where you can look down the line, right? So if it's a little bit here, I'm not gonna freak out about that. A little bit inside. I don't want to see someone with their eyes past the golf ball looking backward.
Yep.
That just doesn't make any sense to me. So at any rate, the proper length putter and connected allow me to tilt and get my eyes on the inside edge of the golf ball. Okay, now the next checkpoint is I look at where the hands come to rest in relation to the shoulders. Now obviously, I want to let the putter move back and forth without manipulation. Let me explain this right now because this is a confusing thing to a lot of amateurs. Does a putter move straight back or does it move in an arc? Well, let me tell you what, it moves in an arc, but it's very slight and you should have no thought about it.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now the reason a putter works in an arc that's very, very slight is because of the angle of the shaft. If the shaft was at right angles to the ground, there would be no natural arc, okay? There's an angle. So let's say the putter is like this. Well, that would be a huge natural arc, right? And the face is square to that path. So the bottom line, like the average putter lie angle right now in the industry is 70 degrees. That's enough to give the putter a very slight arc. It takes no thought, right? So I don't want you to think about taking the putter in an arc, and I certainly don't want you to think about taking it straight. I don't want you to think. If your hands are underneath your shoulders, and there could be a feeling of straight back and straight through because my hands are straight under my shoulders. So when I let that happen, my hands swing in straight line. Here's a really cool, simple thing. I tell people all the time, if you're set up properly and your elbows are here and you swung one hand and hit the other, it should swing in a straight line, right? Now, if I'm like this and my hands are outside of my shoulder line, I do the same thing, it's going left. That's gonna be someone who hits the toe of their putter. So bottom line, if I tilt properly, and my hands are under my shoulders, right? Naturally, I can let my hands go straight back and straight through. So if someone says to me, I feel like the putter's going in straight lines, I know right away they're feeling their hands more than the putter head.
Absolutely.
You know, Stan Utley, some of the guys are really, they feel the putter head. Well, Stan's gonna feel more arc because he's more aware of what the putter head's doing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you know what's always been big for me is just, you know, if I were to hold this right here, you guys can see. My hands are traveling straight back, straight through, but look at the putter.
Because they're under your shoulders.
You see the putter's not. The putter's straight, just like my straight putt, no matter what. 5 inches coming back straight, and then it starts to naturally arc. Okay, and you guys can see that, but look at my hands. They're traveling straight back, straight through, and that's important to understand. Hands falling directly underneath your shoulders. The shoulders being square, which he always taught me. The shoulders are the train track of your putting stroke. Okay, if I'm here, well, that's where my stroke's gonna go naturally. If I'm here, here's where it's going to go naturally. So we've seen Jack Nicklaus right here. We've seen Bryony Baird right here. We've seen multiple different, people square, people slightly open like Tiger. I've always had my feet probably a couple inches open, if anything,
Yep.
but my shoulders are always square.
Yeah.
And that's where the hands are going to travel straight down that line. And once again, as Todd said, because the putter's at an angle away from your body, that's what creates the natural arc.
Without thought.
Without thought.
So what Scotty said is absolutely 100% right.
Factual.
The best putters have a slight arc in their stroke. That doesn't mean it's a thought. And when it's a thought, usually it becomes too much, and now it's inside, and that's
I was a windshield wiper for 6 months of my life, going like this.
Well, and plus you're manipulating it. The real question is, okay, to look at it and go, well, why is the putter going straight back and straight through? Is it your thought? Are you trying to do it and get in the right setup, get the right length putter, and forget about it and let everything swing, right? I just don't believe that a great putter is conscious of the putter head, looking at it, thinking about it, whatever. So if my hands are outside of my shoulder line, the natural is going to be bad. I always say natural beats unnatural under pressure, right? So natural is going to come out when it matters, and if my hands are out here, I'm going to fight this, right? And if my hands are inside, I'm going to fight this.
That. Yep.
So if my hands are right under my shoulders, where I can kind of hit one hand and the other in a straight line, I'm not going to fight it. It's just going to swing. If my shoulders are square, my hands are under my shoulders, I have no path problem. If I have pressure on the sides of the grip, I have no face problem. If you have control of the face and the path, you can roll the ball straight,
it.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So then the next thing that's important, so we've got the grip running through the palms, the shaft is aligned with the forearms. I'm stepping and I'm tilting so my eyes are over the golf ball, inside edge. I'm taking my stance after that, and I'm checking my hands are under my shoulders. When I take my stance, here's the critical thing here. We talked about this already in the full swing. So in putting, there's less knee flex because you certainly don't need to load your quad or your glute. So I always say lock, unlock, right? So a little less knee flex. And here's the point. The hips have to be over the shoulders. Here's why. If the hips are over the shoulder is past the knees. And that allows someone to let everything swing uninhibited. The minute I see someone get their hips behind them and their knees forward, that puts the shoulders behind the knee. Now I got to go around the corner, right? So I'm trying to get people in a setup, in a position where I can have just nice flow and kind of go underneath, right, down that line.
So we're playing golf underneath you and not around you guys is huge.
Yeah, right?
Huge.
Right. That's the big thing with the setup, is making sure that I'm tilted forward, my eyes are over the ball, right? I take my stance, my weight's on the balls of my feet. I can take my right hand off of the putter and it just swings right back to the grip. If I'm out here, it doesn't do that.
So stay right there, Todd. Look at these lines, you guys. Okay, we draw these lines on all of our players. We'll put you on the iPad. Look at the eyes, right to the inside edge. Look at the hands, right from the middle of his shoulder, directly underneath his shoulders there. Look at the hip joint, stays right over the ankles. Face on view. I always wanted to make sure this is the top of my pendulum. And Todd would agree, what he taught me was we want to be slightly hitting up. Now, I don't want to hit up an ad loft, so what I would do is I had that ball 1 inch ahead of center. I could check to see when that grip was right in line with my zipper. If that ball was 1 inch ahead of that, I'm good. I would then take the end of that club and just bump it right over the top of the ball very slightly. I'm not a big forward press guy, just a tiny little bit. And what that would do, it would now allow me to slightly hit up into the ball naturally without thinking about it.
Key.
Naturally without thinking about it, because what did Mickelson always do early on? He had the big press, and then he had to actually back up on his short putts in order to accommodate that, right, and hit up on the ball. So the tiny press right there, and what that would allow me to do is hit slightly up with a de-lofted face. That would put topspin on the golf ball, and anytime the shaft is a little bit ahead and not this way, the putter face is also going to be stable through impact. So I'd roll it tight, have good face control, and that's where I felt a little bit more of the pressure with that heel pad
going that way,
going
like
this way.
Yeah.
I always tell my players, don't putt with your fingertips. Don't putt with your fingertips. Putt with the top of the heel pad. And a nice little drill I've always done is I get my players to actually take their hand off and just apply pressure there. And what you'll see is the wrist creases don't change as a result of that.
I gotta throw something in here. So you'll love this. I don't think I've ever told this to you, but so this was when I was in my 20s. Right? I think I was 22. I was in Texas on a putting green. Doug Sanders, remember Doug Sanders? Passed away, I think he won 19 times. But he was watching me putt, and he said, if you learn to move the putter grip the same direction as the putter head, you'll become a much better putter. That's an awesome tip for people. So, in other words, if the putter head is going backward and my grip is going forward, that's a problem. If the putter head is now going forward and my grip is going backward, that's a problem.
That's some good stuff right there, you guys.
If the grip, and I used to practice watching the grip, and I just make sure I kept that grip end moving. Now, it doesn't ever move as far, right? But it moves in the same direction. So
Yep.
if I keep that grip moving, right, the putter head won't twist. That's a really cool tip.
Comments on this one. My best players, in my stroke when I film it, a lot of the best strokes I've seen, people get confused with the pendulum.
Yeah.
They think it's going to be pointing constantly back at their center, and I see them then do this. I see them add loft and get rid of the face. When I putt, I'm putting, and guess what? Even though it started off a line just left of my belly button wide, well, the ball's 1 inch ahead of center. If it was dead up and down, it would be right there. That tiny little bump that I press it forward is right there. When I finish my stroke, though, this is more aligned with my armpit and not back towards the center of my body. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and bottom line, even if, you know, when back before the USGA took away anchored putting or belly putting, you know, the belly is up here, right? So if I go like this and I extend that, it's still there, right? It's still at the same, you know, a little bit, maybe it moves a little bit. But my point is, anytime, you know, you're changing that grip, and that grip
Yep.
is just moving the wrong direction, meaning opposite of the putter head. So if the putter head's going forward, this is going backward, that's a problem. It's changing the loft.
Yep.
If it's going forward, you just want to move it the same direction. It's simple. I like simple, you know, I like
I always
simple
told Bo
stuff.
Hostler, and he was a great putter when he was an amateur. When I was over at Impact Golf, I worked with him a lot, and I always felt the same thing. I felt like it was a calligraphy brush on the ground, and I was just brushing it.
Yeah.
Brush. I wouldn't splat the paint across the paper like this.
Yeah.
You know, it was always just like this.
Yeah.
And I always just kind of put the putter back here, and I would just feel this look right here, like a little drag through.
Just nice flow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then rhythm. Let's talk about rhythm, because rhythm is the glue that holds everything together in the golf swing, in chipping, and in putting. You know, one thing that was big was Todd and I had a metronome. 72, 73 beats per minute was kind of the baseline for us. So I still have it to this day. Free app on the iPhone. Okay. It's the Metro Timer app, and it's literally Metro Timer. I already got it set 72 beats per minute. And, you know, here's the big thing. No matter which putt I had, 1 foot, 100 feet, I stuck to that beat. Now, one would say, wait, the only variable changing then would be the distance you take it back, but doesn't that mean then you'd have to be faster on the way through to get back there? Yes, in actuality, but the human mind is not going to wrap around milliseconds. So my whole point being is this. I feel 1, 2 with a 1 foot putt. I feel 1, 2, and I'm talking when I say 1, 2, back on 1, arriving at that, on a 50-foot putt, on a 100-foot putt the same way. But the thing is, yes, am I slightly having to catch it up a little bit on the longer putt? Absolutely.
That's
but
the
that's
point.
not something, it's the point, right?
Right.
And it's not something that I'm consciously thinking of.
Right.
I'm just sticking to that rhythm. So once again, when you look at, you know, a real short putt, you know, it's 1, 2, right? It's 1, 2. You know, when I'm hitting a real long one here across the green, or just forget across the green, let's just go, you know, 16, 17 feet right here. 1, 2. You know, that right there, for me, in my mind, was the exact same pace. I went back and arrived at that same pace. I simply lengthened my backstroke to accommodate for the distance that changes. There was 2 variables there, the pace of the stroke and the length I take it back.
Right.
I'm not conscious of how much I'm accelerating the putter to get to that distance. I'm just simply counting in my mind, 1, 2.
You know, it's interesting you say that because, you know, I found this through teaching. I mean, I think most amateurs have what I call a signature backstroke. You know,
Yes.
signatures, I do it the same way every time. So if I take the putter back 10 feet on all putts around, say, my right toe, whatever, well, I got a little putt, my subconscious goes, like you said, your brain doesn't sit there and think, whatever, it adapts. So if I take it back 10 inches and I got a short putt, right?
Hit the
My
brakes.
brain's gonna go, you better decelerate. Now, if I take it, now next hole I got a 50-foot putt and I take it back 10 inches, my subconscious goes, you better hit it. So I'm always changing my tempo. So you either change your tempo or you change the length of your backstroke. One of the two has to happen.
And after a poor setup, more so than anything, a poor tempo is what's oscillating the face and changing things throughout the stroke. If
Yeah.
you keep a consistent rhythm, believe it or not, that putting stroke is going to be very stable. But that's where I think it's important, you know, to me, setup, rhythm.
I think one of the keys about that is transition. I think that's where people get quick or
Yep.
slow. Because when the putter stops backswing, starts a downswing, that's where our brain interrupts the motion.
And that comes from that signature backstroke, though, and
Exactly.
really not having any baseline. You know, I think the biggest thing from working with a lot of players, if you get them putting with the right tempo and you get them understanding their 1, 2, that 72, 73 beats per minute,
Yeah.
what's nice is you're eliminating one variable. And what I've learned about watching a lot of players is when they have that rhythm checked into their head, they're then able to look at a putt and use that visual of how far they are away from that. I mean, remember Ray Allen shooting three-pointers? I mean, it was just like butter.
Yeah.
Same rhythm every single time, right?
Yeah.
And what was nice about that was it didn't matter where he was on the floor, that thing was going in. Steph Curry the same way. The whole point here is I can look at that distance I have now. I already know, I'm already hearing 1-2 in my head. Now my backstroke will adapt to that 1-2.
I brought you a book, right? Putting in the Zone.
great.
I wrote this a couple years ago.
What do you think, Kev?
And
Oh,
you know, the sixth
I love it.
chapter. Yeah, look at this is the whole thing I invented. Gosh, it's been a long time, 15 years ago. But it's like getting people in the right setup. You know, where the eyes are on the inside edge of the ball, the hands are under the shoulders, the hips are over the heels, like we talked about in the golf swing. And then literally using the Pythagorean theory, I have a tool that I invented, straight down, straight over, and you can use that to calculate the length of putter. So you get in the right setup before you get a putter, right? Don't accommodate yourself to the putter. Make the putter accommodate to you while you've gotten the right setup.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
When you get the person in the right setup, and we're going to go through that in a second. When you get the person in the right setup, the top of the wrist crease down is the vertical. And then there's a horizontal from their toe line. That vertical, by the way, matches the toe line. So it goes straight down right here to here from the wrist crease. And then there's a horizontal that would go out. And it was A squared and B squared. Todd developed a tool that is unbelievable. It's the coolest invention I've seen in the game that fits the putter perfectly by measuring that vertical and by measuring that horizontal.
And created a diagonal.
And then he created a diagonal that is the putter itself, C
Yeah.
squared. If you put a 35-inch putter in my hand, let me simulate that real quick. Oh.
Can't do it.
So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to have to pull this in. I'm going to be too upright. I'm going to be sitting back on my heels. All the stuff that you just don't want to do is going to happen initially.
So here's the three things that happen.
Okay.
The length of the putter influences the distance you stand from the ball, your posture, right, your forward tilt, or your elbow connection, those three things. So if a player's got a putter that's too long for them, they have to stand up taller, or if they try to tilt and get their eyes over the golf ball, they have to pull their elbows up behind their, now they're stuck.
Stuck and all the hands become overactive.
They go, okay, I'm gonna be tilted, and I'm gonna have my elbows in front of me, but now I have to have the putter out from me. Now my eyes can't be over. So the only way I can get set up properly over the ball is to have a putter that accommodates the setup.
This is good stuff. And you guys, don't forget, this is going to be my gift right here. I'm stoked to be one of the first who has it. But let me tell you, go and get Putting in the Zone. It's on Amazon. You can just type this in and find it right away.
Yeah, it's color or black and white. You want to save some money, you can go black and white, but color is much more.
The color, yeah, I love it. I love it. But look, it's all the stuff that I learned, as a kid, and I look at these pictures and I go, man, you know what? This is all the stuff I used to look at. So definitely go pick this up. It's made a difference for me in my game, and I know just taking a little bit of what we talked about today, applying that, and once again, have some comments, answer some, ask some questions down below. We'll be there to answer your questions for you and get you putting better. Okay? All right, you guys.
It's great.
Good stuff. All right,
That's
buddy.
fun.
Thank you.
All right.
At Forzak Golf, we take a lot of pride in having developed some of the best and most consistent golf swings on the planet. We do this through simplicity. Our Full Swing Masterclass will take you on a step-by-step, easy-to-understand process on how to get your golf swing better than ever. Join the many before you who've utilized our Full Swing Masterclass to take their games to the next level and beyond.